Welcome to another Saturday night and taking it to the nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmie, and tonight I've got the director of brand management on Phan from Drew Estate on. So we're going to have some good times with on. We're going to talk about brands. We're going to talk about new things. We're going to talk about past, present, and future, hopefully. Let's roll that first advertising segment, and then we'll bring on right in. And today's show is brought to you by Casa Cuevas Cigars. In the 19th century, Juan Cuevas, Spanish immigrant from Santander, began what was to be a family business which now spans 4 generations. Like others fortunate enough to live and work in Pinar del Rio province of Cuba, Juan commenced cultivating tobacco, turning it into a successful business. Following in his father's footsteps, his son Juan Jr. continued with the family business, successfully expanding it until events which took place in 1959 forced a dramatic change. Years later, in the Ciabo Valley of the Dominican Republic, Luis Cuevas Sr., Juan Jr.'s son, carried on the family tradition of handcrafting fine cigars in the family's cigar factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas. Today, Luis Sr. is joined by his son Luis Jr. in the manufacturing and sale of premium long filler cigars at their factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas in Santiago, Dominican Republic. So check out Casa Cuevas Cigars at www.casacuevascigars.com and on their Instagram and Facebook channels. All right. Let's bring on in. There you go. Hello, how are you? Welcome to Taking It to the Nub. What's new?
Hold on, let me see if I get this audio right. All right, I'm here.
All right. Oh, just been a wonderful day. I spent a good portion of my day down at a martial arts tournament. I didn't get to compete because of this, but I got to watch a bunch of my fellow young students get some medals and stuff. So quite interesting, all different arts, everything from taekwondo, karate, kung fu, aikido. It was very cool to see the different forms and the different techniques. So how about yourself?
That's what's up, man. Yeah, me not much. I mean, we're getting ready to start our planning and budgeting cycle for Drew Estate for the upcoming year. So it's kind of been like this long gauntlet of discussion on, hey, what are the new cigars we're coming through for next year? I think we've kind of got an idea of that. And then, of course, then everybody wants to have another 10, 20 new cigars. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like, the ship is kind of sailing. And if you guys really want something, I mean, I'm thinking 2025 at this point, and nobody wants to hear that. So,
all right. Well,
we'll
get
always kind of
into
balance out.
we're going to get into some of that hopefully tonight.
Yeah.
What are you smoking tonight? As you're driving along.
Yeah, I didn't bring anything to smoke, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
wow.
yesterday I had a bunch of Blackens, and I've been smoking a lot of H99 Papa Fritas lately, man. Those have been kind of like my go-to clutch cigars, of the past month or so.
They are, and I actually just for this, I decided to break open a box of DE25 samplers and pulled this bad boy out.
Yo,
That is what I'm
Lancero
talking about.
approved.
That is one of my all-time favorites in that box and in the brand itself.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows I'm a Lancero fan, and I think I've heard from our sales guys. They're like, no more Lanceros, and I'm like, but we love these things. They're just like, well, don't give us a sell. We'll smoke them all day.
No.
So yeah, Lanceros, man, huge
so
fan, good taste, man.
so you've been now with Drew Estate since I would say the right around the beginning of the deeming regulations.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah,
Right?
I
Right
started in
around
2017.
2017, right? So
Yeah,
you came on board at a very interesting time. And over the last 8 years, you have seen that whole process move. You just learned that they've exempted premium cigars from that. Um, what is Drew Estate in doing now when you're doing with your brands? You got the premium side by definition of the FDA. Then you've got things like acid on the other side, which could still be causing you a headache to get through the rest of this. How are you navigating those waters as you strategize the future?
yeah, certainly. The recent court rulings have been favorable for premium cigars. I think the cigar industry as a whole can kind of celebrate potential ending and invalidation of the deeming regulations. But keep in mind too, FDA still has time to appeal that ruling. So if they choose not to appeal that ruling, which there's many reasons why they might, then that potentially might expand, what kind of cigars we might be able to put out in the next couple of years. So, because you think about, and I don't want to speak for other manufacturers, but certainly different manufacturers have different views of what compliance means, right? In what those deeming regulations implied. So for us, it's still status quo until we hear if the FDA is going to make that appeal in the next 60 days. But certainly, but if they do not make an appeal, then certainly I think we'll have a little bit more latitude with regards to some of the cigars we might put out there. Also, keep in mind, the definitions of what a premium cigar is. Those were founded in the courts, so that wasn't a regulation or something that's been defined by the regulatory agency, that's the FDA. Also, has not been defined by Congress. So certainly, what is the ultimate definition of a premium cigar? I mean, I think that there's still some debate on what that really means. So when we get some kind of more definitive definition of it, whether by more case rulings or more from the legislative process and administrative process, I think that there's just like they need to spend more time to define what a premium cigar is, because I mean, I think even like recently, one of the reasons Drew Estate came back to PCA too is also PCA's view of what premium cigar is. So when you think about that, I think that's one of the reasons we came back to the show, and I think it's good for the industry, for Drew Estate to be at that show, and it's great for all of us to be back together at that trade show.
And we're going to welcome you back with open arms. Drew Estate has been missed at the trade show. It's always fun to see the big bridge. Maybe not a bridge this year. I don't know. You guys might have something big new coming along. I know you guys. It's here we are. We're back. So anything, is it going to be new this year? You don't have to tell
Yeah,
me what it is. It's going to be a new
we're
splash.
always currently working on designing that booth. I think everybody's looking at us and always has huge expectations of us. I mean, I remember the first time I saw the booth, I was part of cigar media. I remember you walked into the exhibition hall, and the first thing you see is a two-story booth, the biggest booth of all the booths, and then the outrageous amount of noise coming out of that booth with the music. So even before I joined Drew Estate, I remember I was like, I gotta find a way to get on top of that bridge, and I actually snuck up on top of that bridge. I don't remember how or when, but there wasn't anybody watching the door, right? So I was like, I'm gonna creep up there, and somebody was having a meeting, but they didn't kick me out. So I was like, all right, let me take some quick pictures and then sneak back down, and it's
Oh
like,
man. You're lucky
those
Matty
moments are what you
Rock didn't
remember.
give you a cross arm block and knock you off the bridge.
Oh yeah, we got him, we got Pete Toro up there, and yeah, they're holding down the fort. But it's always great to be back, because it's like those moments with the retailers, those moments with the media, that make that show worth it. Those are the things you remember, all those conversations you have as the day's going through, man. And I know as a media member, it's like, well, how many miles are you going to walk with all the camera gear and doing videos, shaking hands, writing, taking all the pictures? It's a lot of work. And I got a lot of respect for everybody in cigar media, having done that job myself. I mean, it's a brutal run, man. So
Yeah.
I respect you guys for the work.
Now, about I'd say probably for maybe a year and a half. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a notification that Drew Estate had put out about quite a number of eliminations of SKUs. So you went through your portfolio, and I would imagine you had a lot to do with this because you're the numbers guy, you're the analyst, you're seeing what's selling, what's not selling. How do we make something sell, or do we just kill it? How many SKUs did Drew Estate really get eliminated over the last year and a half from their portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's got to be north of 100. I mean, it's always a tough time when you have to shrink your portfolio. When you think about all the different sizes, all the different brands that you come out with any given year, you look at those brands and releases something that should last for a very long period of time. But one of the things that's happened in the last 5 years, and I'm sure it is with so many factories out there, is when you start reaching your limits of capacity. I mean, there's real implications of like what you're able to do once you hit that limit. So luckily we've been fortunate where, hey, we actually cannot meet the market demand of our the cigars because there's just not enough labor, not enough tobacco. And so what we had to really make hard decisions on was, all right, okay, if there's a huge demand for so many of these products, how do we make more of these products available for our customers every day, whether that's a retailer, whether that's a consumer out there that's like looking for this product. We want to keep these products that are the fastest moving cigars in people's hands because that's what people are looking for. So, we kind of took a look at our portfolio and made some really hard decisions, including some projects that were dear to me, projects that I started working on when I joined the company 7 years ago, and we just sunsetted them, which, when I think about it, it's one of the hardest things to do to say goodbye to a cigar that you worked on so hard and you spent so much time to make happen as a cigar, because like we're really big geeks about the cigars we put out there and we love the cigars that we put out. But when you look at the economics of the business, what are our customers telling us? And if we're unable to meet the needs of not just our customers, but those people that walk into those cigar shops every day ordering cigars and they're like, hey, why don't you guys have my favorite cigar? Well, they just don't have. When is it coming in? Well, they haven't told me when it comes in. We're like, look, that's a disservice to our customers. It's a disservice to our retailers that rely on us to be delivered to deliver for them. So that's kind of why we made those decisions. And yeah, it was over 100, different cigars that had to go away, including like some really old brands. You think about our oldest brand was like La Vieja Habana. That was the first Drew Estate brand, and we sunsetted that brand because we're like, well, there's other brands in the portfolio that kind of like have, when you think about why it existed in the first place, it was a short filler, traditional cigar, and very cheap. And we think about our portfolio today. One, there's factory smokes. Two, we came out with Nica Rusica. So when you look at those two cigars, those are positioned and price positioned in different parts, and that LVH kind of lost its purpose of where it belonged in our portfolio, as well as the market demand for that. So that's kind of like why, okay, LVH goes away, but guess what? There's more Nica Rusica, there's more factory smoke. So that's kind of like why we made those decisions. And hopefully, I think our customers have been happy with kind of our product fulfillment, because it's like a less complex business to be able to fulfill our products on a better scale.
So when do you bring this one to the States?
Right. If the FDA does not appeal, like I said, we will have a much larger playbook to play from, including every safari blend that anyone ever
I
went
mean,
down to the factory.
is
And I
that
swear,
really so? I mean, I got this in Madrid. This is a only for
oh
Europe.
yeah, La
This is
Gran
the only for
Fabrica.
Europe cigar. I never saw that band on a Drew Estate cigar until I was in this shop in Madrid, Spain. I had to pick up a few.
Yeah, La Gran Fabrica. That was made like sometime during when I started at the company, and we're like, what is this new cigar? None of us knew what it was. And so that's a product that's sold exclusively in the Spanish market. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
pretty rare find. So very nice
Yeah.
find.
Yeah, it is. It's just I smoked one. The other, this is just gonna rest. Figure out what I want. It's not a bad cigar, but you have other regional cigars other than that?
No, I mean, like we have Bauhaus, that's something that we did for
Yeah,
Europe recently. And then, a lot of we don't really have anything that's like a regional. And I think there's been some demand, and that's something we've been looking into because, obviously different parts of the country, different cigars are popular, whether it's like sizes, when you think about going to Texas versus Northeast, or maybe it's the time of year, seasonality, because sometimes as well as I know, when it gets cold in the Northeast or in the Midwest, nobody wants to smoke like long ass Churchill or Gordo. You're trying to find a Corona or something really quick to smoke when it's like freezing cold and you have nowhere to smoke.
okay. Now, what would you say is the number one, or maybe the top three selling brands and Vitola in that brand and on your portfolio right now, worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, when you think of the top selling SKUs, it's going to be the Toro. That's number one. Number two is Robusto. And number three is generally going to be either Churchill and sometimes Gordito if we have a Gordito, because we don't actually have a Gordito in every blend that we do. Although recently we just did one in Liga. So we made that Super Ancho, which is a 6x60. And I've been happy to hear from a lot of people saying, like, yo, that was a really badass cigar, and for 6x60, like, I don't usually smoke those cigars. I'm like, me neither, but we made sure that if we were gonna do one, it was gonna be really good, like a really great 6x60.
And then what would you say the top brands are if we take acid out of the picture for a second?
Oh, if you
Okay.
took acid out of the picture, I mean, Deadwood is a monster brand for the
Mm.
company, as well as Factory Smokes. Man, Factory Smokes is something that we invented back in 2019, and now it's like one of the largest bundle brands in the tire premium cigar industry. So speaks to our ingenuity in terms of making a quality product at a super low price. I mean, you're looking at a cigar that sells anywhere from $1.80 to $2.50, and is a really great cigar that, I mean, like I said, the numbers bear that out. And actually, if you go onto any of the catalog sites, it's one of the products that people review the hell out of. I don't know why people want to talk about Factory Smokes, but people are just compelled to talk about it, because maybe they just don't believe they found such a great cigar for so cheap, right? I don't know. Sometimes we find a good value, like, I'm at a mall and I was like, well, let me see if I can find something on sale, and tell people about it.
So from an analytical perspective, going back to your analytic mind, is it better to sell a whole lot more factory smokes or less Liga nines or something like that?
At the
Meaning
end of the day,
margin
when you have like
was.
yeah, I mean, margin wise, on a per stick basis, you're going to want to sell Liga just as a point of efficiency. But you think of like, why does factory smokes exist? It exists because of, we have byproducts from the factory, so when you have that extra material, smaller leaves, lower priming leaves, leftover material from your production, then, that's why that product really exists. So it's like, well, yeah, I mean, same thing of why, we came out with H99 Papas Fritas. We didn't have any byproduct of H99 because like we never started making the cigar until recently. So, when you think about, okay, so Drew Estate let out H99 5 years ago, and during those 5 years, we've accumulated that byproduct of, hey, smaller leaves or leaves that do not have the same premium look. So it's a lower grade wrapper, but it still smokes the same. And then finally, you put out that cigar as well. So I mean, as part of an efficiently run factory, it's like, well, you have to have your cheap cigars as well as your expensive cigars, because they're all byproducts of buying like a single crop. So when you think about, hey, we go to Connecticut River Valley and we go to the farmer and say, hey, we want your entire crop. And whether that's going to be broadleaf, whether it's going to be T52, whether that's our Connecticut Criollo or Corojo, all those materials, we have to plan out what we do with it. So when we started buying, the premium leaf of this Connecticut Criollo, we didn't really think about, okay, what are we doing with the binder grade of this? What are we doing with the lower grade wrapper of this? What did we do with the filler grade wrapper of it? And, a lot of the stuff, we're still determining what the future of some of that stuff is, because like, let's say every given year, if there's a high wrapper yield on this, then there's a less urgency to start using the other byproducts. You still have time to figure out, what are you going to do with the binder? What are you going to do with the filler? And sometimes the factory starts using the material, but most of the time we put that material aside and say, hey, look, we're going to come up with something with this in the future. We're not sure what that is yet. But for efficiency and making sure that, every dollar that we spend buying a crop, we use every last piece of it. Kind of like when you have nose to tail dining, and those restaurants try to use every last part of that high quality ingredient, protein, then, that's kind of what we're doing. Try to just use and figure out every usage that we can from a new material. And that's one of the things too. Like, you get a new material, I mean, it takes some time for it to get it consistent. It takes time to figure out what this tobacco can be. So that's a lot of what we've been doing. And that's why I'm excited, if, let's say, the FDA doesn't make that appeal, then we have a lot more options in terms of compliance, because, those deeming regulations kind of put a big restriction on kind of how we looked at things on a compliance level.
Right, right. What you knew you can come out with and things like that. So you take this, take these leaves that, like you said, the binders and the filler leaves, and you bail those up. They're just stored right now in a warehouse.
Yeah, a lot of it is stored. I mean, a lot of it also is fermented. So as this stuff gets fermented, then we start using it. I mean, you think about the last couple of years, we just didn't have a lot of material ferment. When you think about H99 and Aniversario, there was so little of it that we were raffling it off every single month. Which it's exciting for those consumers to go like, all right, this month, who's going to get some? But as a retailer trying to make money on a consistent product that's available, they're like, why is this product not available? Why are you guys putting this product out there? But, we're like, it's a 10th anniversary of Liga Privada. We're trying to put out the best quality, cigar that we could put out there. And we chose that, even though we knew we didn't have a lot of that wrapper. But, you look back at it and you're like, you know what? We made some virtuous decisions to go out with the best leaf that we possibly could, rather than, all right, let's go for something that will be commercially successful, but in 5 years, no one's going to really care or smoke that cigar ever again. Or, Liga Privada used to be good, but these new ones just don't make the cut. And you know what? I'm proud to say that, like, we spent our time making the right decisions to go make something that, people are going to love even to this day. So that's kind of like why I feel like, that's a project that I'm super proud of.
So let's take you back now. So let's go before Drew Estate. You were a lot involved in financial analytics, things like that. Obviously, that is part of the reason why Drew Estate wanted you, I imagine, because of your analytics. You get into Drew Estate, you work up through the ranks. You're now the director of brand management. What does that encompass? I mean, we talk about brands, we think of, all the different brands, but what does your job encompass on a day-to-day basis or month to month? What are the things you oversee?
Yeah, it's a wide variety of stuff. I mean, if you think about it on one level, it's like, how do you sustainably grow this company in the future in a way that's virtuous? That to me is one of the problems that I am tasked with every single day. And a big part of it is like, how do you virtuously grow our brands? Where should our brand portfolio grow on any given year, whether that's through the campaigns and making demand for our existing portfolio. So that could be advertising, that could be the swag, that could be the in-store events, and working with our consumer engagement team to deliver those results on that front. So it's like, hey, how many store events are we going to have next year? What's the type of stuff that goes into those store events? What's the look and the feel of the swag coming in there? What's the buying mechanism that triggers off all the incentives for promotions? Whether that's working with Willie Herrera and the factory team and going down to Nicaragua, working with Henry, our project manager, and working on every single new project that's come out in the last 7 years or so. A lot of those things have my fingerprints on them, and that's a big charge of what it is. Because you think about new releases, we're not trying to put out limited edition releases. We're trying to put out core brands, because that's how you sustainably grow a business. And it's hard, because every time for Drew Estate, when we want to put out a core brand, it's similar to bolting on a new factory at the company. So there's a lot of sales guys always looking at my team and saying like, hey, why do we only have one release for everybody? Because then I'm like, if you think about it, and we're doing one release and we do it well, we're going to basically have to bolt on, X number of cigars onto the factory on production that it's already at its limit. So that means we have to find new tobacco, we have to find new people, we have to find new space for all these things to actually happen. And so that's the complexity of, not only like coming up with those new brands, but making sure that we can find that tobacco, and for that tobacco to be consistent, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And that includes then working on what's the look and feel of the cigar. what's the packaging? How much does this cigar cost at the end of the day? What's the story of the cigar? And working on at the point of sale, what do these cigars look like? And also spending time, making sure that the communication of our brand is the consistent. If let's say you ask me a question about it and you ask Pedro a different question about a cigar and we have different answers, well, that's confusing. That can confuse a lot of people. So we spend a lot of time making sure our messaging is consistent internally, externally. And that's a few of the things that we try to do. But like I said, our goal is to try to put out new favorite cigars for everybody, where it's like, and trying to keep that standard of quality super high. Because on any given week, I always get emails about, I think I just got an email that a box of cigars was sold to a customer and it had no cigars in it. That becomes my problem. So,
Well,
I have a lot of different hats I wear.
let's kill the. There's a. I'm not going to call it the 800-pound gorilla. Let's kill the 200-pound gorilla that is looming around right now tonight. I just saw it before I was on the show. Came into my feed. A guy gets a box of, I don't know what they were, but the seal is not seal. It's slit, and it's covered in cello. And there's a big debate going on right now on Facebook that Drew Estate, they're known for cutting the seal, opening the box, closing it, putting the cello on, and then shipping it out. Yes or no? Or is that only on certain ones or not at all?
Yeah, I mean, it might be on certain ones. We certainly have our refrigerated containers that come in and out for every cigar coming in and out of that factory. So, I think, if there are any openings where they are inspecting that, that's pretty much after putting them in the containers or whatnot. So I believe that does happen on occasion. I don't think that's a regular thing. I don't know what the exact cadence of that is, but I do have heard that, sometimes they do open it to inspect a couple boxes for quality control, or whether it's for just the color sorting or whatnot. But when there are situations where, hey, something came in not right, I mean, Drew Estate, we always back it up. So anytime anyone ever finds something, like, hey, email help@drewestate.com. We'll work it out in terms of, because we stand behind every last cigar, whether you found a nail in the cigar, or hey, the cigar is just plugged. We don't want people to have bad experiences with our cigars, and it's always worth our time to go make it right for our customers. Because, hey, guess what? Doesn't matter if you buy a $2,000 a month on cigars or you spend $20 a month on cigars. You should always be able to have the cigar you paid for and have the smoking experience that you deserve, because that's what we're here to do. We're not here to take people's money and then say, oh, that was not our fault, and not have any accountability. Even if it's like the retailer's issue, or hey, it was damage in shipping, we still stand behind our product because that's the right thing to do. And when you do the right things, you know what? People care about that and they come back and buy more. And that's the reason we care about our customers. Even it's like, most people are like, that's a lot of work to do, and it costs a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, but what's the more damage? Angry consumer that tells 10 people, hey, don't buy these cigars anymore. These people don't care about me. No, we want to like roll out the red carpet for people and say, like, we care about you. We want you to be a part of supporting like what we're doing every single day, which I always tell people, look, if you're smoking premium cigars from Nicaragua and Drew Estate cigars, you are literally supporting the people of Nicaragua and putting food on their tables and making sure that they have a job. And that's the thing that anyone listening from their house, from their cigar lounge, should really understand. Is like, man, like, cigars are made by the people. And when you're smoking them, that supports all the people, whether, hey, they're moving the pallets in the factory. Hey, they're putting the cellophane on the bands, or hey, they work at the factory where they're making the cellophane. All that is a part of the premium cigar industry. And that's what we're all supporting, as we smoke cigars.
Well put. And I'm sure that inbox is never empty. Because people are always have something that they got to concern themselves about. You talked briefly, part of the brand management is the cigar brand itself, and it's the swag. So, Drew Estate is one of the best in the business when it comes to swag. You produce swag, you've got hats and you got t-shirts, and I can only have so many hats and t-shirts because they just stack up over here on a pole that I have with a bazillion other hats. And I wear a Boston Red Sox hat, so or I wear a fedora, right? But I got hats and I display them. But you many of the other pieces of swag that you've put out over the years have been I consider useful pieces of swag. Now, let's start with, I have some. Okay, we'll start with this one. Very popular. All right.
Oh, nice.
This was a very popular thing came with your acid, with the had what 25 acids in it. It is a humidor kind of thing. It had a Bovita pack in it. Very cool. People have collected these. They have them on a shelf. I only happen to have one of them, but that's okay. It's really starting to show its age. If the top of it's getting all gnarly, but I
Dusty.
like it. It's kind of reminds me now more of what that looks like on the top of a building in New York City. So it's aging very
Yeah.
well. I don't know if people realize that, but it's getting all the tarnish on it now on the top. It's very cool. Then you came out. So DE25 was huge for you with swag. I'll start with this bad boy. All right.
Oh yeah.
This it amazes me when I have people over and they for a party or something, and they break this out and say, "Let me light your cigar," and they take this cap off, and I go like this, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Oh, it's just a lighter." And they're like, "What? Where'd you get that? I want one of those." You should just sell these things because people love them.
And you shake it, and it has a little rattle on there.
Yeah.
It was actually John's idea, and I remember he told me, like, you guys have to find a spray can lighter. And I'm like, after talking to a couple vendors, I'm like, you're out of your mind, dude. Like, and another guy that was at our company, Ryan, he was able to get that thing done. And I was like, you
Ryan
got
did a
this spray
great
can
job.
lighter done?
He did a great job on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, that's one of our favorite things. And it's funny because, like, you start making anything in China and they instantly start selling it to other people. Because I started seeing other brands, not in the premium cigar space, but they just started having the spray can lighter. And I'm like, seriously? That was pretty quick, man. But I guess when these factories start seeing you buy a couple thousand of them, they're like, all right, this has got to be up there for somebody. So
Right?
yeah, great swag. I mean, I worked on the swag for a good couple of years. What was funny, like 7 years ago when I joined the company, the salespeople didn't want to talk to the marketing people. I was like, well, what's going on? They're like, well, marketing sometimes promises things like swag, and then it doesn't show up or it runs out. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. I'd love to help to try to fix that problem because that doesn't sound like it should work like that. They're like, hell no, it shouldn't work like. I'm like, all right, well, let's see what's going on with that stuff. So it became my job for a little bit to help manage all that stuff because it's like it's a huge part of our business. When you go to a Drew Estate event, and I remember my first Drew Estate event 10 years ago, right? I went and bought, I don't know, 4 cigars, and it was like, I think it was the debut of Herrera Esteli. And like, I went home and I didn't stay for the raffle, and they called me and they're like, hey, you won a Faro Flying Pig cigar cutter. And I'm like, no way. And I didn't have any cool cigar cutters. So I went to the cigar shop and I got my cutter, and I was like, wow, what a cool company, And it's funny because, like, years later, I think I was in Nicaragua, and the customs took that perfect cutter that was like a Faro Flying Pig smoking a cigar, and I'm like, no. And so I've been trying to hit up Joe Grow, who works over there. I was like, do me a solid, bro. I need that cutter back. And that was the first like swag I ever got from Drew Estate, and the Nicaraguans took it.
Oh, that's hilarious, but sad. These are very popular.
Oh yeah.
Right? You get these every time you do a freestyle live now. You put out that freestyle live pack, and whatever is that special cigar has one of these branded for it. And I know I've got a number of these, and people collect them like they collect coins, right? Put them on the
Oh
shelf.
yeah, there's got to be like over 20 of them right now, and that's why I love seeing the consumers do. They love the cigars so much. They go on that journey trying to find every last one. Any retailer that has one piece of it, they're like, let me try to get that. And the great part too is like cigar community. It's like, if you're trying to put a set together and your friend has some extra, your friends are gonna help you out, man. That's what
It's like
cigar community
trading.
is
It's like
about.
trading baseball cards. Right? I have 2 of these. I'll give you one for one of those. Here. Now we both have
Yeah.
an extra, and now we have completing our set. Then there's
I
this
mean, isn't
bad
that a
boy.
part of like any good cigar community? Like, you're always trying to trade. And I think the number one like personal trait that cigar trading teaches you, and being part of the cigar community, is like, give more than you take. Like, you never want to trade and be like taking advantage of people. You're always trying to send more stuff. So it's like this
Oh yeah.
giant contest of who could be the nicest dude. And I'm like, that, when I look back at 10 years ago when I started in cigars, I'm like, that actually had a huge impact on my life and made me the person I am today and working in premium cigars. And I'm like, give more than you take. And if you can do that all the time, I'm like, I think you're doing a good job being a cigar smoker. That's nobody wants to be that guy that's like mooching or like
Oh
takes too
man.
much. takes your nicest cigars every time. Nobody wants that. People want to hang out with the guy that gives you the nice cigar, or like whatever is in my stash is your stash, man. And that's what people want to be around.
And I, a lot of this swag, being, with you all sponsoring me and stuff, I've gotten, duplicates of swag, and I've sent those out in prizes all the time. I recently sent out, this bad boy. All right. By the way, the
Oh yeah,
backpacks are awesome. This backpack, by the way, made it up Mount Fuji. So this is,
wow.
so when all the pictures and stuff that I showed of the climb and the time in Japan, this was on my back at all times. So there was a lot of placement of this throughout my trip over there. But yeah, I had an extra one of these, and I said, okay, we'll raffle this one off. And somebody won that. Somebody won one of these. This right here, I use all the time, right? All the time.
Yeah.
And I
keep you charged up.
It keeps me charged up. But how many people, looking for a brick? Well, you got a brick. There it is. And I know I gave some of those away. What else? Oh, and then of course the Savage Feast. We were blown away with these.
Oh yeah, the pimp cups.
Oh my Lord. When we opened up that box and saw these, it was crazy, the applause that you all got for this. This is
Oh yeah, because everybody found out they got a giant set, and it was just like, you got some guys trying to take 5 or 6 of them, and
I saw
everybody else is
that.
like just so happy to have one.
So, and the list goes on. The list goes on. I mean, the little wallet that you gave away once with one of the events, the Freestyle Lives, I believe, had that little foldable, you put all your credit cards in. I use that all the time. I mean, I threw away my wallet. I said, I'm using this, and it also doubles for opening up my beers if I have to, because it's got a little strength to it. But the list goes
Yeah, I mean
on.
that's the thing about making swag. When you're making the swag, it's like one, it just has to feel cool, right? So if it feels cool, then we probably want to buy it. And if it's like, hey, this is so cool, but I would never spend money to actually buy this thing, we also want to make stuff like that. And it's like, well, if you buy a box of cigars, you'll get this regardless. All right, that's a good deal. And I see it every time I go to a cigar event, right? And I'm watching people do the calculus in their mind, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I actually will take that thing because I do want it, and it looks cool as hell. Where sometimes, hey, if the swag item's not cool enough, maybe they don't buy the cigar. But at the end of the day, too, it's like, there's a bunch of people that collect the swag. So when it comes into their man cave and becomes part of this pile display of just like cool stuff, or it gets to the point where they have so much cool stuff, guess what? You decide, hey, I'm gonna make somebody else's day and mail them this cool stuff because I don't need this stuff. I
That's
don't
what
want to
I've
sell
done.
this stuff, but I want to hook up a homie and make them go like, holy cow, you are fucking badass. And that's what I love doing. Sometimes when I have extra swag, I'm like, yo, man, check this out. Here you go. Especially if it's a new smoker. When a new smoker gets a cool cigar swag, they feel like they're part of our club as being like a cigar smoker, because they have something that just like, why do you have that? That just doesn't make, like, a spray can lighter doesn't make any sense. But like, since you have it, it's like, hey, if I'm gonna smoke, I'm gonna have cool stuff to do while you smoke.
That's right. That's right. It's okay. 10 a.m. I'm looking at timing, guys. I don't know how much time you have tonight. We got run this for a
Yeah,
little more than an hour. But what I'm going to do is I'm going
yeah.
to drop in the second advertising segment. This is about 4 minutes. And when we come back, I want to dig into freestyle, the whole freestyle live movement, how that came to be. You're continuing to do it. And of course, I know you got one coming up. We could talk about the date and time for that. Okay. So with that, let me just. And today's show is brought to you by Bocock Brothers Cigars, a new and active brand founded by two Honduran brothers, Bryant and Douglas Bocock. The brand zeroes in on those folks that are looking for easy to smoke cigars inspired by unusual circumstances. Very importantly named after their very interesting and imitable last name, Bocock. Right now, Bocock Brothers is featuring their Signature Edition, made at the A.J. Fernandez factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. It features an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, a Nicaraguan Habano binder, and a Nicaraguan filler. Available in 3 Popular formats are Robusto, a Toro, and a Gordo. You can check out Bocock Brothers Cigars at www.bocockbrothers.com. And today's show is brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. Platinum Nova is a family owned and operated premium cigar company. Only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and the family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather to always remember him and his infinite passion for the finest cigars. Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for that exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You can check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars, www.novacigar.com, and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. This episode of Taking It to the Nub is sponsored by the Box Press Cigar app, the ultimate cigar smoking experience. With Box Pressed, you can easily catalog cigars with your own virtual humidor. Quickly rate and record notes for any cigar using the Smoke Session feature. Receive intelligent cigar recommendations based on your personal taste profile and access exclusive discounts from top cigar brands. You can even shop your favorite cigars directly in the app, then automatically sync the order to your virtual humidor, plus so much more. Download Box Press today by typing bxpr.sd/install into any web browser and discover the world of cigars like never before. That's bxpr.sd/install. And today's show is brought to you by All Saints Cigars, a company founded in 2019 and headed up by industry veteran Mickey Pegg and his two friends, Martin Corboy, a successful restaurateur, and Frank Leo, an Air Force Academy graduate military veteran. As Mickey explains it, they were all sitting down talking and smoking cigars, and finally they decided that they would do this thing together. It was time. Mickey said, I decided if I'm going to work hard at it, it should be something I love. Besides, a tough day with a cigar is better than a great day doing anything else. Soon after, they began the process of launching All Saints Cigars, jokingly referring to themselves as the Holy Trinity, St. Michael, St. Martin, and St. Francis. They chose for their logo the cross of St. James, the patron saint of Nicaragua, the country where their cigars would be produced. You can check out All Saints Cigars at www.allsaintscigars.com.
Before you light your next cigar, be sure to check out Cigar Medics, the makers of the patent-approved humidimeter. The humidimeter is a tool designed to display the relative humidity inside your cigar. With this device, there's no more guessing. Simply insert the probes into the foot or cap of your cigar, and you can instantly know if your cigar is ready to be smoked. Buy now on cigarmedics.com and see site for other cigar accessories. With the humidimeter, you'll know when to hold them and know.
All right. Welcome back to On. So I don't know if you saw the beginning when I rolled the Papa Fritas commercial. I'm sure that with the new Freestyle Live, there'll be another video that we'll replace that one with, but we don't know what it is, and we're not allowed to talk what it is. But is it going to blow us away?
I think so. You know, every time we're trying to do Freestyle Live, if we want to show our new cigar, a new cigar represents years of work. You know, it's funny because sometimes, I remember, we had someone come in and like, how long does it take to make a brand? And if you ask certain people, somebody might say, 9 months. Somebody might say a couple years. It all depends, man. That Papas Fritas has been years in production. Just one, we had to think about, can we even make enough regular H99 to make a Papa Frita? Because you do need to make, regulars. So that finally happened where this is the first year we've actually had a lot of H99. I wouldn't say we have like exorbitant amounts of it. It's enough that people can see it regularly on the shelf. At least that's what I hope. And there's a big risk when that starts to happen. It's like, the second that it's not hard to find anymore, is it going to be something that's good enough that can stand on its two legs? And luckily for us, I think the answer is yes. H99, yeah, we now have a lot more of it. It's still as in demand as it's ever been because it's a great cigar. It's gotten a lot of great ratings out there, and it's something that we put a lot of time in to try to make a new, whether that's just a new like a new blend and new usage of the tobacco. It's easy when you have great ingredients, so the time to actually make that kind of cigar is a lot quicker than if you had no base blend and no base ingredients. But certain other things take a lot longer. Anytime we're working with a new tobacco, that's like the longest, and it's almost high risk too, because sometimes you're telling a farmer to grow something and you might not know the exact quality of what they're growing. You're like, all right, that just sounds good. Let's see what we can come up with, and we'll make a plan to buy this experimental crop, and then we'll grow more a year later once we really figure out what it's about.
So when you get into free, for those that may not be familiar with Drew Estate, believe it or not, there are people I run into that never heard of Drew Estate. I don't know how, but they do. It's surprising. Talk about freestyle. So what was the idea of putting together Freestyle Live? And you kind of did this during a pandemic. If I understand correctly, it was a way to connect to the consumers.
Yeah, certainly. During the pandemic, one of the biggest struggles, and it just wasn't from cigar consumers, but it was also from retailers. The struggle of how to still get people together in a time and period where it wasn't safe to get people together. So, one of the things Drew Estate did right when the pandemic started was like, hey, let's fire off a bunch of swag for retailers so that they could have promotions and get people in the store and get people to buy. And another huge byproduct of that era was actually creating our first virtual sales event. So having a virtual event where we could get people to really connect. And that was the big part of that period of everybody was stuck at home and couldn't leave the house. So you think about it, it's like getting that platform out there, and it let us work on something that we've always wanted to work on the last couple of years, which is just to get more content out there to reach our consumers, to interact with our consumers. So when the opportunity came for a Freestyle Live, that's something that was, one of the people that thought up of it was definitely Joe Grow, somebody I've worked with for a lot of years at Drew Estate, and coming up with the idea of, hey, what if we had some cigars and people could smoke them blind? And for the first time, we'll tell them online what this is. I was like, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that could be something really cool. If people just smoke something and just try to guess on what exactly is it, and can we be part of this moment of where people are doing that all together, and finding out, this is what this is like. Wow, my palate was right, my palate was wrong, whatever the case is, right? And creating that experience for people, so it's like sharing in that moment, really testing your palate of hey, do you actually know tobacco? Do you have an idea of what this possibly could be? And just watching people get surprised time and time again, whether it came from Underground 10, 20 Acre Farm, blackened M81, or H99 Papas Fritas, which is, when people were looking at that Papa Fritas size, that, a lot of people were convincing themselves, no way, can be a Papas Fritas. Or some people said it was Ambrosia. Other people said it was Herrera Esteli. It's like, hey, I love that people have different answers. Everyone has a different palate, right? So their palate is telling them it's Ambrosia or Deadwood, whatever it is.
And it is fun because and I watch I follow it, and I watch people guessing, and they're talking about it, and the media talks about it. And I kind of keep my mouth shut. I like to eat the popcorn and watch the show. But I know the Adobe, that was a big one because nobody expected that, because that was such an awesome cigar that nobody necessarily pegged it, except for maybe Kevin Shahan. I think Kevin Shahan knew it was Anika, and other than that, he didn't know what the name of it was, but that was Anika. Everybody else was like, no, it's this, it's that. can't be that. It's a lower price, cigar. The M81 was nobody. I mean, that was just, what is this?
Right. And when you're investing in the platform, it's like, hey, sometimes it's gonna be a very low price cigar. But guess what? We want people to have a great experience with low price cigars. Also, it's like, hey, smoke the cigar and without any bias, right? Of pricing, labels, smoke the cigar. And if you like that cigar when it is released, you can buy more of it. If you didn't like it, well, at least you tried it, right? Because some people, the second they hear it's any brand, like, oh, this is an acid, I'm not gonna smoke acid. I'm not an acid smoker. And people have with their brands like this feeling of ownership. So it's like when you put out a brand, some people are automatically gravitating towards it because that's their brand. Other people, they it's not for them. So that's why we're like Freestyle Live. Let's have everybody have a chance at this, whether it's their brand or not. We're gonna give this cigar a chance so that people can just try this cigar and make that judgment themselves. And what I want to see too is like, hey, when we put that cigar out, it sucks because it's like the time of year where people have reviews to write. I get it. It's hard to write a review for a cigar that has no band. And I think like what's funny is I think almost everybody thinks that we change the band or blend after, and we're like, no, that's always the same blend that we put out there. Doesn't matter if there's bad reviews, doesn't matter if there's feedback, it's gonna be the same blend because we take our time to like make sure that when we put out something, it's gone through a whole bunch of people and we really love that cigar. So but hey, we'd love to hear from the consumers and the media and the retailers about what is the cigar, how much would they pay for the cigar. But we always try to put out a good cigar, and I think that at the end of the day, whatever the price point is, it's still all good.
So now the next Freestyle Live is coming up in September, right?
Yeah, that'll be just before Labor Day, so that'll be our new Freestyle
That's
Live
next week.
Yeah, definitely a lot of exciting news there. And on one hand, is it going to be a new cigars? Maybe. Is it going to be some new swag? Potentially. That's why people have to tune in and see like what is going on with Drew Estate. What are we cooking up? Because I mean, that's our time to spend with our consumers, retailers, and media, just to be like, hey, like guys, this is the next iteration of what we're doing in the future. And I'm always honored that people spend the time and actually watch this, because they find it exciting and there's something in for them. So, that's why we love doing those shows and connecting with our audience and our consumers that just love what, we're doing. I mean, there's no other industry where, hey, you're working on something and other people actually care about what you're working on. And for me, working on all these great cigars that we have, it's always very humbling when like other people are ecstatic about it. And I'm like, that's so cool because like that's what I want. Like we want to make great cigars happen. And when other people are smoking and they're like, yo, this stuff is great, then it's validation of all the work that we put in to not just like, hey, we want to make a cigar and make money. That's not how we go about our business. We're like, we want to make great cigars, and by making great cigars and serving our consumers and retailers, we'll make money. It's not like, hey, we just want to make money and come out with a new whatever it is. It's just, no, we want to make a great cigar happen, great cigar experience. And that's really where our mind's at any given year of like new cigars. And a lot of times people bring a lot of new ideas to me, and I'm like, well, if we can have a lot of tobacco and make a product like that happen, yeah, we can come up with a new cigar like that. And that's the one thing too. Sometimes I don't tell retailers when I go to a shop what I do, because then they go like, hey, I need to talk to you about Liga Privada. I was like, if it's about how much Liga Privada you're getting, that's not a conversation. That's a conversation you have with your salesperson, because I've empowered them to make that decision of how much goes on. If it's about the quality of the product or a new product, I am totally down to listen to all day about Liga Privada. But if it's just about how much you get, I don't know. That's a business thing, and I let our salespeople handle that piece.
So now on the Freestyle Live, every time you do a Freestyle Live, you have this cool pack. The Papa Fritas, there was 4. There's normally 3 in a package, but the Papa Fritas was 4. What are they? $39 for a for the pack?
Yeah, typically, and sorry, I put on my light in my car because it's starting to get dark. Yeah, typically it's about $40 MSRP on any given pack. So I'd expect the next round, which we're not doing it for this next Freestyle Live, but pretty soon we'll have something out there. But yeah, that's typically where we want to keep that.
Oh,
pricing,
you don't have a pack for this next one?
Yeah, this one is just some specific announcements. So it's not a special edition. So, typically when we're going to do one that's special edition, that's when we're going to sell a blind pack and reveal a brand new cigar.
Okay. Okay, so this is just an extension of something that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, tune in and see. There's going to be some good news, and I think it's worth
Okay.
checking out. It's going to be something where, yeah, tune in and you'll see what's up.
So Frankie's no longer with the Freestyle Live crew. Um, we always enjoyed drinks with Frankie.
Oh
What
yeah.
happened? What happened with that?
He's got some great opportunities. So right now he's working on some spirits. Also, he's working as a director at a different cigar company that just started. So, the whole time I've known him, he's had great connections within the spirits industry. So, one of the big cocktail lounges in Miami, Cafe La Trova, which is one of the top rated cocktail bars in the world, they just started a cigar brand. So I think when he got the opportunity to go over there, that was something that he couldn't say no to. So he's doing really well over there. So, props to him. I've always had a great time working with him, and wish him always the best, because the times that we've had together have been phenomenal, with great results, and just the quality of the person that he is. When you hang out in the cigar industry, I think more times than not, you're surrounded by people that make you feel great, have great stories, and just have a love and appreciation of life in general. And that's what I love about working in cigars. People are generally pretty happy people with a great and broad life experience, and people like just love having fun. And I could tell you, if I ask like a recommendation about where good food is in any part of the country, cigar people are gonna lead me the right way. Any single place, man, somebody
I
knows where the good food is.
I could tell you that years ago I was at an IPCPCR in Vegas. So my wife was with me at that show. We went and visited the pawn shop that's the Pawn Stars are on, right? Which is a goofy, stupid little place. That was a waste of my time. But across the street was a cigar shop, and my wife was hungry. I said, "So let's go to the cigar shop." She goes, "But I'm hungry." I said, "Well, let's go to the cigar shop and find out where a good place to eat is around here."
Yeah.
So we went over there, and of course I got a cigar. So now it's now we're gonna have like a 45 minute to an hour before dinner, and my wife's getting antsy, but that's besides the point. And she wanted pizza, so we wanted to know where like the best pizza in Vegas is. And everybody in that shop agreed. Metro Pizza. And my wife looks at me like I have three heads. She goes, "You really gonna listen to these guys? We're gonna go to a place called Metro Pizza. It's over by the university." I said, "Listen, trust. Let's just trust them, okay? It's good. I could assure you we're gonna love this pizza." She's like, "Okay," and off we go. You walk in this place, and the first thing you see on the wall are photos of the best pizzas in the United States, from Hawaii to New York to California to Texas to Chicago to Detroit, everywhere. It's all on the wall, right? And sure enough, on that wall is one of the best pizzas in my life, is from my hometown, Long Island, New Hyde Park, called Umberto's. And I said, if they got Umberto's on the wall, okay, this guy better have great pizza, because that is phenomenal pizza, right? So we order this pie, it comes out, and everything on that pie is fresh ingredients. The green peppers weren't like mushy, right? They crunched, right? It was just perfect the way they did this. And my wife looked at me and said, "This is really good pizza." And I said, "Yeah, because we talked to a guy at a cigar shop. They told us where to go. You want to get a good haircut, talk to a guy at a cigar shop. Okay. Anything you want to know, there's somebody in that shop's going to give you the pointer if you're new to the town." So that's the place I always go. I go on business. The first thing I do is I go find where the cigar shop is, where my office I'm visiting, and the hotel is somewhere in between those. All right. And then I bring out colleagues when they want to go to dinner. I always end up one night early going to a cigar shop and finding out like a really great restaurant. And I'll come back and I'll say, "Okay, guys, tonight, let's go to this place." And we'll go to, "How do you know about this? Is this the first
Yeah,
time you ever been?
exactly.
This is the first time you've ever been in this town. How do you know about this?" I said, "Cigars, man. It's all my knowledge
Especially
comes
if
from.
multiple people agree. If multiple people agree, that's a done deal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if a bunch of people are willing to put their neck out and say, like, yo, this place, if you take a bunch of people, it's good, then it's good. Nobody ever wants to recommend bad food because it reflects poorly on them. So that's why everybody in the cigar shop is always saying, like, this is where the best, whatever it is. And you can argue about it. And that's the fun part about being in the cigar shop. It's like, those fun conversations about, yeah, where is the best, whatever it is.
Now, in your line of what you do, obviously, I would imagine that you get involved in at least in the tasting of the blends or the final blends or somewhere along that pathway before it goes. You must be part of the voting committee, all right? So you work really close with Willie?
Yeah, me and him, back when I started, it used to be, he'd go down there and make cigar blends happen, right? And I'd smoke them with the team, and I'd be like, "Hey, where does this line with the compliance? Like, what kind of ingredients are in here?" And he'd be like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "All right, now we got to figure this out." Or, "Hey, this cigar is not compliant. We're gonna have to reblend this, dude." And after a couple of years of working in this style, now it's more like, Willie, if he's gonna go down to the factory, he'll hit me up. He's like, "Hey, what's the project? What's the list of projects we got to work on? And can you tell me a little bit about each one of these projects? What we're trying to do with it? Is there a tobacco we want to use for this?" And so yeah, he'll work with the blending team once I give him a rundown. So like whether I'm going down in Nicaragua with Willie and working with the blending team and our Nika team, or whether Willie's going down there and I can't make it, but I'll send a list of like, "Hey, here are the projects that we're currently working on. We need some answers on these various samples." Or, "Hey, what happened to these samples that we were working on, and are they aged now and ready to go so that we can like bring them here?" Or like sometimes he's evaluating a sample. So what happens is, once he's working with the blending team and they get something together and it gets aged, Willie then has first crack at smoking all of them. So, by virtue of that, no cigar being produced ever does not have his seal of approval. If it doesn't have his seal of approval, he's not giving it to me or anybody else for that matter. He might give one to maybe Joey, our creative director, just to get some opinions, but generally he's pretty tight guarded until he finds something he likes, because if he doesn't like it, nobody else is gonna. It's not gonna see the light of day. So, a lot of times I'll get something from him, and we'll review it as a team and go like, "Yeah, we really like this for this one, or this one works, or hey, this one's a little bit off the mark." For example, we got the first Super Ancho, and I remember I smoked it. I was like, "This is kind of like super light, man. Like I think we got to do a little bit more to make just a cooler 6x60." And yeah, well, that gets redone, and then the next round comes out, and you wait a couple months, and we're like, "Yo, this one, all right, man, this one is ready to go." And that's one of the few things. Like I very rarely go to Willie and go like, "I don't think this is gonna work." Most things that he's coming out with, I'm like, these are really fantastic things. And I always talk to him, and we were talking about the other day, and I was like, isn't it fucking awesome that like, we get to work, and when we put out cigars, it's cigars we care about and we think are actually really good. If it doesn't pass that muster and makes us excited, it doesn't become a cigar. That's the number one thing when we're evaluating any single project. We're like, are we excited working on this project? Because if we're not, how are we going to convince our salespeople to be excited, our retailers, let alone our consumer? It's just not going to work. So you know what? If we're not excited about it, it's just not something where we're like, let's go out and make a bunch of money. No, we're trying to make an exciting experience that makes it worth the money. Otherwise, it's just not going to be something we invest our time or our consumers' energy or our retailers' energy or hey, your energy to cover this new cigar that just is boring. Like that's not how it works, and that's not what we spend our time trying to do. Any given day.
Now you brought up a good point in this dialogue about before this deeming rule went away, there were things like Willie would work on you, and then you'd be like, "Oh my God, I don't know if we could produce this because of the rules and whatever." So, do you currently have a vault right now of really cool recipes for cigars that you haven't produced, that all you got to do is turn the switch on and say, "Go get this leaf and go make this cigar"?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly always like piles of those type of projects where it's like, hey, we just never were able to put some out. But then now, when we try to do our business planning of any of these new cigars that we put out, it's like, well, what's the cigar supposed to be? How long is it supposed to last? Is this something that we want, to last for 5 years, or be a permanent part of our core portfolio? or is it going to be a lot of limited edition cigars? So you think about, hey, the last 7 years I've worked at Drew Estate, all the products that we worked on, I mean, they had a different set of compliance rules in terms of being very strict on what type of components are in there, what the size of the cigars are. Because there's certain other companies, they take a much looser interpretation of what those rules are. And as a byproduct, they're able to put out a lot more variety in what they've been able to put out in the last couple of years in terms of limited releases, shop exclusives. You know, I have an endless supply or line of folks that want to do shop exclusives. I've kind of been very conservative of how many shop exclusives we can do, because I'm like, well, if we want to truly put out a unique cigar, which every time I want to do, because I just think, hey, you can't just put you could just put a new sticker on an existing cigar and say this is a guy's cigar. But I'm like, on an authentic basis, it's like they deserve better. And we don't want to just do a bunch of shop exclusive cigars by putting, new stickers on old blends and just call it something. It's dishonest. And so for us, it's like our integrity demands that, like, hey, we're going to work on exclusive. It's going to be a very unique cigar that's brand new and something that is different, and that's something that's important to us, because, like, at the end of the day, we're all cigar geeks, and the whole department of marketing people are cigar geeks. So it speaks to, like, hey, we don't try to make expedient decisions just because it's expedient and convenient. It's like sometimes you take the hard road because it's all about doing the right thing for our retailers, our customers, and our consumers. And like I said, by doing the right things and giving them what we stand about, and the cigars that any manufacturer puts out speaks to what they believe in, right? And I'm like, we want to believe in that we're putting out the best cigars that we possibly can, not just like, hey, we promised you a cigar by this date and it's not ready. Well, that doesn't mean like we just go make some bad decisions to meet a deadline. We want to make virtuous decisions all the time and have a very long-term view of our business, because all the time people want to make hey, we can make this deal. I'm like, well, if you want to make a deal that's just not good for long term, I don't think that's worth our time, because this is a long-term business. We're not in business to hit numbers one year and never, no, we're here to grow our company sustainably, reach more consumers and introduce ourselves so that, when people think about Drew Estate, that's like, that's my favorite cigar company. That's my favorite people. That's my favorite swag. Those are my favorite sticks. And this is the company where it's like, they've been great to me the entire time I've been a consumer, and I'll support them until I stop smoking cigars. And I'm like, that's the company I want to work for. And if we can be that for our
DE4L, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So,
where I'm at in the company. I'm like, I want this to be like a job that, like, I can take pride in, where it's like, look, I told Willie, I'm like, we're lucky to be able to do this. I tell people that I work with, I'm like, the price of us having this cool ass lifestyle is like, we got to work our ass off. And sometimes it's not convenient to do that. But if we're able to do that, we get to have this cool lifestyle of like great cigars that we smoke, great people that we get to hang around with and work, and just building relationships all the time. And that's what this business is about. It's not about selling more sticks at the end of the day. Yeah, that's kind of like what some people think we do, and I think that's a big piece of it. But it's also like being great people and being the best cigar company that we can, and providing great experiences for people. Because, like, you know what, whether you're sitting at home watching Boston Jimmie on a Saturday night and putting in the comments, awesome. But you're part of a community of people smoking cigars. Whether you're in the lounge, smoking cigars, or whatever it is, it's like cigar people are social animals, man. And it's all part of being like part of this great community of people, and sharing what our values are about. Because there's a lot of people that look at cigars and they don't really know what cigar smoking is about. They think it's like some kind of exclusive snotty thing, and I'm like, it's never that, man. It's the most welcoming industry, that if you're brand new to cigars, you'll find mentors in no time, and people show you how to do things, or do things wrong, whatever. But everybody has opinion, and that's the thing. Everyone wants to be helpful.
So here's an opinion from me. So your portfolio is extremely limited in Connecticut shade. You came out with the shade, which is, I absolutely love that cigar. It is probably one of the best cigars in the morning with a cup of coffee. Is there any future of another shade? Maybe not a Connecticut, maybe not the shade, but another Connecticut blend that might come out? Is that on the radar screen?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I probably did over a year of just smoking Connecticut's. I wouldn't say exclusively, but let's say every cigar shop that I went to, if I saw Connecticut hadn't tried, it's like Lanceros, right? I want to know what great Lanceros are. So I buy all these different Lanceros, I smoke them, and I'm like, all right, these ones are really great. These ones are not so great, or this one I don't really remember. And I did the same thing with Connecticut's, because I'm like, you know what? If we want to compete in Connecticut, that's something that I think a lot of people have told us, hey, you guys don't have a lot of Connecticut. You guys have all the Maduro you could imagine. And we're like, yeah, we're great at it. Right. And I'm like, well, if we want to do Connecticut, and I've smoked all these different Connecticut's, and I'm like, let me smoke $3 Connecticut, $5, $7, $10, 12, all the way up to like $30, $40 Connecticut's. Right. And constantly just trying to be like, as I'm smoking these things, try to be objective, right? So it's like putting my cigar reviewer hat on, right? And because I used to review cigars like a long time ago, man, like very informally. But and I think about it, and then I would classify most of these cigars as, okay, you have Connecticut that tastes like paper, like not a lot of fine fermentation, not a lot of heavy,
Burns like paper,
light.
burns your eyes.
Yeah, burns like paper, but because there's a person out there that's like, I don't want any spice. If there's any spice in the cigar, I'm out. There literally is, because I have a lot of friends that do smoke cigars, and and I'm like, tell me about these cigars. I need to understand this, because I'm trying to make a cigar maybe for Shane.
You
And they
want
tell me that, and then
buttery.
I'm
You
like, all right,
want
let me
buttery sweetness. You want buttery, some sweetness,
creaminess, but not to the
creamy.
point where it offends your palate. Like
Right.
still smooth and just light, and you get to that point in some cigars. And I was smoking some at maybe the $8 to $9. I was like, there's some really like things that I would personally like love to smoke, right? And then there was another one where I pulled out. I was like, wow, this one has some spice on it, and that's what I kind of like on that too, But it wasn't overwhelming, and so the nicotine level wasn't strong either. But it was like, it was just tasty. And that's kind of like the difficulty with the Connecticut. It's like trying to not burn a guy's palate out, not knock their head off. And also that tobacco only has so much range in that, and finding different grades of the tobacco too. So, I would say, yeah, we're working on a lot of shade projects. When and where we can do that, a lot of it's going to be dictated on like how much capacity we have and what we're willing to give up to make a new cigar happen, because that's kind of like where we're at. It's like, we want new cigars. It's either, hey, we got to train some new rollers, which that becomes harder and harder and harder, even if you're one of the largest, if not the largest company in Nicaragua. You can only find so many people, right? And then at the end of the day, it's like, we want to make a sustainable new business out of our new brand. So we have to keep it in stock. And it's not good enough to just put out a product and then you're out of stock. That's just how you kill a brand new brand. And our salespeople constantly, they teach me all the time. They're like, day one sales, man. If this thing is not ready on day one, we probably shouldn't be selling. I was like, you know what? You guys have been right. And we'll continue that commitment to not, and you think about it. I think a lot of manufacturing in the next year, as they get to PCA, guess what? They just released a bunch of products, in the last month or so, and are going to have to scramble the rest of the year to deliver on these new products. And you're going to tell me in about 6 months is a brand new wave of new products, when I just told you products on a minimum, are 9 months plus, and it's like, realistically, how long are we going to be waiting for the cigars promised at PCA? I don't know, but I'm planning to make sure that they come out much sooner than later. And I think that's a universal problem across the industry. And I hope a lot of people don't encounter that problem and can solve that problem, because, you don't want consumers talking about it. And it's like, well, this cigar is it's November, man. It's still not here. It happens. And I've been there.
Oh
Trust me.
yeah, you got to get it. Not only do you have to create it, age it, and all of that, and maybe you have already that done. You got to get the boxes, you got to get the bands, and then you got to get it shipped out of the country. All right, and all of that, like you said, takes time, and then you got to get it here, and then you got to get it distributed. So yeah, it's a process, and I appreciate that. Going back to a comment you made about how cigars are really for everybody, I remember a time I was down in the Dominican. I was down there with Ryan Gallimore and one of my local shops owners. And he was the local shop guy, was looking for a house blend. So we went out, we did the whole factory stuff with a couple of different factories. And one night we went out to the Davidoff Lounge in Santiago. So we go into the Davidoff Lounge, and on the wall is a picture of Hanky Kellner. Now, Hanky Kellner, for this guy, he's older than I am. He was like, now he's probably 74 years old. So put it in that perspective, right? And that's his God. Hanky Kellner's God. for him from the cigars. And Ryan,
Yeah, legend.
and
Legend.
He's a legend. And Ryan brings up, he goes, yeah, well, that's legend then, but now we have legend now. And he brings up Jonathan. He says, you got to look at Jonathan, what he did. Yeah, Hanky Kellner created the premium cigar business, right? Got it out there, and suits and ties and business people and absolute luxury, and that was what cigars was. Then Jonathan hits the market, and when he gets in, he opens it up to the blue collar guy. It's like, I can make a cigar that doesn't have to break your bank account, still is a phenomenal experience, and gives you that opportunity to sit around with fellow enthusiasts, have conversation, and discuss stuff. Right? It's okay if you have tattoos on you. It's okay if you wear weird shirts, okay, and jeans. It's okay. And he like your brand rebirthed the industry. So you have to put his name right up next to Hanky Kellner. And we're having this debate going back and forth. As we're having this debate, who walks into the shop? Hanky Kellner.
Of course, man.
And this guy's eyes lit up like a kid at Christmas time. He was like, that's Hanky. And we're like, go over and say hi to him. He goes, go over and say hi to him. So he walks over and he introduces himself, and they sit down, and they spent like a half hour just smoking cigars and talking and drinking. And he could not stop talking about that experience from the time we left to the time we got back. And when I would go to this guy's shop, that's all he talked about for months upon months upon months, about his experience meeting his guy in the industry. And a lot of us have that experience even with Jonathan. The first time you meet Jonathan, it's like, oh my God, I met Jonathan. This guy's so cool. And look what he's done for the industry. And he gets so much love wherever he goes. Okay, that people just want to come to him. They just want to shake his hand. Then, get an autograph is fine, but they just want to shake his hand, be like, I shook Jonathan's hand. And
I
that's
mean, the
got to
first time I
be
met him, I probably waited 4 hours to go shake his hand, right?
right.
So I waited in line. I didn't know what a Jonathan Drew event was. I just knew there's people waiting in line, and maybe he gives you some cigars. So I'm like, all right. They said like they cut off the line, and it was like they're like, he'll be here for 3 hours, so you can try to get back in the line. I'm like, well, that doesn't look good. I mean, everybody's already in line, so I don't know. I'll figure this out. And so I get in line, and I'm maybe the last person in line. And he hands me something like 4 manifestos, 3 or 4 A's. He's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't get a chance to talk to, I had to talk to all these other people, but I am still here. And I was like, wow, it was like 4 hours later. And, the first thing when I started working with John in 2017 was, he's like, I've been on the road 300 some days the last year. I kind of want to work like way less on the road, and I'm trying, and the next year is another 270 days, and we're like, and then by the third year, okay, you got down to like 200, then down to 100, and now, here's the thing people don't know: the dude shows up to work every day, and if he's in Miami, he's at the office generally at 8:30 in the morning. People say, oh, he doesn't show up. Like, no, the guy shows up at 8:30 in the morning, and he'll be there till the end of it, and then the day too. So it's like his work ethic is crazy. I get to, I look at it as like, you know what? I'm lucky enough that I get to work with a genius every day, and he gets to sprinkle a little bit of that, just on all of us. And, I'm always proud working with him. And he told me the other day, he's like, you know what? I try to lift you guys up every single day. And he does, man. He's like a big proponent of like, hey, we do great work. He lets everybody know. But he's like, sometimes you guys got to lift me up. And that really lit a fire under me. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So let me get to work on a couple of things and just work at a different pace. Because I'd say there's one person on the planet that could outwork me, and that's him. And that comes from just like, that's just who he is. He's not a person that's going to be sitting around, He's always scheming up something. And that's the one thing I'd say people don't really understand about John is just like his unbreakable work ethic. The guy's constantly thinking about work. And it's like, I don't know how he does it. It's amazing. He's got a huge capacity for that. And just like an endless love of debate of great ideas, So it's been amazing working with him for the last 7 years. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's been just like the craziest run in my career, and just working on something, like I said, people care about what we work on. and we're always being tasked to raise the bar. It's like there's no year. I just hired a new brand manager, and I'm like, your job is to come in here and show us a new way of doing stuff. Like just because we're doing it this way doesn't mean it's the right way. We bring you in, so you bring us new ideas and make us a better company at the end of the day, and that's why you're here, not just to run the same playbook that's been inherited. So I feel good about where Drew Estate's going in the future. Like I said, we're going back to PCA, and that's a huge moment for us because, like I said, the best times is just spent on that trade show floor or afterwards at some of the after events, and just that's the stuff you remember after all those trades. It's not the video that you worked on or the photos or the press release. I'm like, no, it's the time that I spend showing people what this new cigar is, and we're all smoking it together for the first time. And I'm like, that to me is the most exciting time on the trade show floor. People are like, this cigar is really good, and hopefully that's their real opinion of it.
So is Drew Estate going to sponsor the main event or an event, major event at the trade show this year? Are you going to do a bigger splash?
That's a good question. We just started thinking about how we're going to make an impact, because it has been a while, and I know that we want to make as big of an impact to make some noise. That's certainly a big goal of ours. Anywhere you go, I don't think you'll be able to miss our booth, but also like being new and innovative. So is it like, doing this PCA after dark party and doing it in a new way that's super exciting? I don't know. Maybe is it throwing our own events? Certainly we've been able to do that. I remember, 5 years ago when we released Liga Privada H99 Anniversario, as well as Cinco Décadas, that we threw its own party, and it had its own venue in its own place. So
yeah, you guys had a media party, man. The media parties were like killer. I remember the one on top of the Mandalay Bay. That was like,
yeah, those parties were always great,
crazy.
and always like everybody wants to go. So it's always like, all right, we got to add this guy, and if you don't add certain people, people get upset about it because everybody wants to be around us, right? And I'm like, well, how do you make it fair, and how do we make sure we can afford all these people? Because like, hey, you're gonna hang Drew Estate, it's gonna be a great time, and we want that same feeling because like that's how we do business. Like you do business and you want people to feel like, yo, this is the greatest time, and I want to be around these guys all the time. And guess what? The more time you spend with us, the more cigars you're probably gonna buy, the more of our cigars you're gonna smoke, and really believe in what we do. Versus like, hey man, I really don't want to hang out with those guys because they're too crazy. It's like, well, not that crazy. We just love just having fun, and it's good fun, and it's always trying to be positive about the cigar industry. And that's why I love this industry. It's an industry of honor, industry where people respect each other. And yeah, sometimes people get in it on the internet fighting. Cool. I mean, that's not my cup of tea, but some people love that, and that's part of the industry as well.
The popcorn. It's the popcorn eating moment. That's what I call it. It's like, I gave up with that. I don't want to. I don't like drama. This industry can have drama in it, and I just feel that the drama has no place in this industry. Cigars, different cigars are for different people. One of the things I always try to pride myself is when I review a cigar, I'm not reviewing it on my palate. I'm telling people what I got out of it. I'm not going to tell you if I don't like that cigar, doesn't mean that somebody else is. That cigar, like I have cigars that are very floral, and there are people that just cannot stand cigars that are floral, right?
Right.
But you come out with a 92 rating. People go, oh, that's garbage. I said, so you don't like floral? I hate floral. I said, that doesn't mean it's a bad cigar. It just means that cigar is not for you. So you read my review. It's got floral. You're not buying that cigar because you read that it's got all those floral notes in it. But the guy that likes floral is saying, I might want to try that cigar because that's right up my alley. All right. And just keep it to yourself with that stuff. Don't bash things if you don't have to. Let's go to this is the last segment we'll get into the personal segment here. This is kind of more of a lightning round kind of thing. Just learn a little more about the person. So are you married?
No, I'm single.
So you're a single guy. Hear that, girls? He's a single guy. He's ready. So you got nieces and nephews?
Yeah, I've got most of my cousins, a lot of my cousins have kids, so some of them range from like very young and 5 years old, others are in college. So it's a wide range, but yeah, I don't have any kids either, so that means I get a pretty good lifestyle of traveling eating great food and doing what I want when I want to do it. So I'm kind of like an undomesticated animal, but that's all good. Sometimes that's just what you're gonna be doing.
So of all the cities that you visited in the United States, what's your favorite city?
I don't know, man. I'm starting to coalesce around New Orleans, man. Every time I keep going back there, I'm like, the food is just so outstanding. And every time I go, I find some new food and the people and just the overall culture per capita. It's not a huge city, but the amount of culture that people that live there have access to, whether it's from food, drink, music, entertainment, it's just this joie de vivre of the people that are down there. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not a guy that sits around and goes to New Orleans and hangs out on Bourbon Street, other than when I go to Crescent City Cigars and just have a stick out there. But I try to go all over New Orleans, and I'm like, that place has art. It has just an excitement level, and I'm like, there's always something to do. And people generally are happy people that live there, and I'm like always amazed by how much they care about other people.
Have you ever
And
been on
that's something to me that means a lot.
Have you ever been to a swamp tour there?
I have not done the swamp tour, but I have done fishing in the marsh. Going
Okay.
through some of the freshwater marshes, and yeah, at 6:30, I mean, there's tons of bugs, but you'll get some fishing done for sure.
Go on a swamp tour sometime if you're there again. Like we're gonna have PCA there next year, and if you get an opportunity, a lay down moment, go on a swamp tour with some of the crew, okay? Because that is one of the most surreal experiences in the world. Because you go out there and that water's just covered with all that green, whatever it is, the algae, whatever, and you got the boat, they got the airboat going through, you got the gators and stuff, but you're in this moment in this, it's so quiet. They shut the boat off and you're just floating and there's this complete silence, but nature. You hear the birds, you see birds, flocks of birds flying from tree to tree, and there are people that live in the swamp. I mean, they literally live. There's like, I mean, it's crazy how people live, but that's their way, and it's just this beautiful thing. So if you get a chance, it would be a fun team building thing to go out with your crew and just say, we're going to do a swamp tour just to get away from it all. And then it takes a couple hours or whatever, and it's a little bit out, it's outside of New Orleans, so it's maybe a 40-minute drive to the swamp area, and you'll just, believe me, you'll have fun. Take it from the cigar
Oh yeah,
world.
yeah. I want to see if you could do that in Florida, because like the airboat tours there. It would
Not the
always surprise
same.
me when I go out there.
It's not the
It's just not
same.
the same. But I'm always like, wow, the water is like 4 feet deep, man. Like that's
Yeah.
what people don't realize. All that swamp is not like 10 feet deep. It's like 4 feet. That's it.
The swamps.
Crazy.
I've been here and live here, and I could tell you that New Orleans, this doesn't hold a candle to what you're doing in the swamps in New Orleans. Okay, you just trust me. You'll really appreciate it. Music jam. What's your music jam?
Music, I'll listen to all types of music. I don't get me wrong. I mean, I listen to a lot of house. Chicago was the birthplace of house music. So, a lot of DJs, a lot of Chicago DJs, and maybe they're not famous on Spotify, but that doesn't mean it's not great music. And when I hear that music, in Miami, there's very few places that have that same type of music and vibe. And so when I can find that, that's always my jam, because I spent a lot of my years shooting, some of these house music festivals and just being around the music and the environment. And it's similar to cigars, when you find that vibe of people and what they're about. And house music is not about doing drugs. It's about being positive and having a great time with your friends and listening to great music. And that's what drew me to house music. And that's why I listen to a lot of it in my car, probably every single day when I'm driving around.
Yeah, that's my son is big into, like, well, it was dubstep at the time, but he gets into the rave music and all of that. And all the electronica, right? And I get in the car with him, and I can listen to it for a while, but then it reminds me of more like the disco, where I was never a disco guy, right? I was the rock guy. I was the guy with the hair down on my shoulders and dark glasses and all of that. And you give me Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and all of that all day long, because everyone's different. But some of these other genres, I felt that were just kind of, one began to sound like the other, and they're designed that way because they can mix them easy together. so many beats. Like disco was what, 66 beats per second, so that, you know, whatever you did, you can easily splice in another one and it would just flow. But that got boring. Like, you know, it's like best
Yeah, I mean, house music in Chicago was about, after parties
mhm.
of bars. So after the bars would close, industry people still needed a place to go. So you'd go to somebody's loft, right? And it'd be a loft in Wicker Park, which is now a super, commercialized area and gentrified. But back then it would be like, somebody's apartment and they're throwing a party and the party starts at 3 in the morning. And
Yeah.
it's not about drugs. Like I said, it's like, yeah, people are just working and they're getting off of work and they're just hanging out, and you would just listen to some really great music and awesome dancing, and that's what that scene was. And I was like, that's why I love it. It was about the people and just like the environment of being around, trying to find a party late at night, and maybe you found the after party, maybe you didn't. But if you found the after party, you'd be guaranteed to listen to some really great music and watch some people have like a really great time and have fun. And I was like, that's what all that was about. And yeah, now it's like been commercialized for music festivals and all that stuff. But I still remember it as formative years of just like trying to find something that wasn't like sitting in a bar, and that to me was what that music was about.
So you work hard, you play hard. When you just chill out, sitting at home, are you streaming anything? Is there anything that's catching your eye these days that you're really enjoying? Any new series that are on, old series, movies, different genres of movies?
Yeah, I mean, lately I was watching the documentary on the American Gladiator. So there was one, and I think it was like an ESPN, 60 for 60 or whatever, and it covered the American Gladiators. The show that showed up in like 1989. I remember I was a kid watching that on Channel 50, syndication, and I'm like, what is this? It's like dudes and chicks, fighting out in some kind of like made up arena game, and that became a big circus. And I was like, wow, that was like 30 years ago. So then, ESPN just did a documentary about it, then Netflix did a documentary about it, and I was like, I love it when two different people try to tell the same story because they have a different telling of the story based on who they end up talking to. And I was like, well, the end of the story is the same. Anybody that was in part of American Gladiators, they didn't really make a lot of money, man. There's a handful of people that made a ton of money, and all these people basically got screwed. And I was like, that's a shame, man, because they were like cultural icons at the time. And I'm like, that's the type of thing that makes me think, because one, I grew up with it. Two, it's a different spin on what I traditionally knew what happened. And three, it's like, yeah, you get that nostalgia of looking back at this period of your life where you're like, yeah, that shit was on TV. I don't know what it was about, but like everybody was watching it. Some guy got hit with a tennis ball, and it was like our entertainment for the night, right? It's like, wow, it's, yeah, I don't know. It's like, every culture has that during its time. And, like cigars right now has that time of like, there's entertainment in cigars, just like look at this week. It's like, NFTs have been popping through, and I'm like, that's exciting. It's something that you can see
It's
that's different, and I love it. And I'm like, that's what getting people to be excited about something, spending money, talking about something different, a new idea. Yo, that's great for premium cigars. And that's what I think like our industry needs more of every single day, of people excited about something.
so last question. Sports. What's your sport?
Well, football's coming back,
Other than
so
gladiators?
yeah. No, I'm huge on the Bears, so that I'm hoping Justin Fields is gonna be good. We'll see. My judgment every football season is if Green Bay sucks and has a bad year, hey man, it's great. And the Bears had a better season. I'm like, hey, we had mission accomplished. I remember what was it? A generation ago, it was Brett Favre, moving out to the Jets, and I was like, man, Green Bay is gonna suck for a long time. And yeah, I've had to eat my words. And now Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers is doing the same Brett Favre dance, and I'm like, the Jordan Love era is going to be very awesome. I think based on what I've seen so far, but
Yeah.
I've had to eat my words the last 17 years, so we'll
Well,
see what's on that.
things have changed a lot in football. You no longer have the Brady era. That's gone. So
Yeah,
you end up with, I mean, I'm still right now looking for that next team because I follow quarterbacks. I don't follow teams when it comes to football. So Brady was my guy. He's gone, and now I'm looking around. I got a big focus on Mahomes right now. I really like the way he plays. I think he's an awesome quarterback. So I'm without a team right now. I'll just watch the season, and I'll start developing my opinions as it goes on. But I don't watch football
I don't
until
know, man.
baseball's
I,
over.
I think maybe this year is a year where you pick like one of these guys going into a new team. Look at the Saints maybe and be like, that I'm gonna just pick as my new team, and maybe they do something awesome. Because there was nothing better than watching like a quarterback that was good somewhere and be able to go to a new place and succeed. The worst is they go somewhere new and it just doesn't work out. Everyone's like, well, you sucked anyways. Versus like you actually did it and everyone's like happy and positive about it versus not. And I'm like, I want to root for somebody new, would be like, all right, they're winning in a place that they never should be able to win at, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. But I don't watch football until the Red Sox are officially eliminated from the baseball season. And right now we're still in the hunt. We're still in the hunt for that last wild card. We'll see what happens, but I got one more month to go through this, and September's a tough one. So we play the toughest of teams, and we're either going to get buried or we make it in, and then then it's a whole new game. Postseason baseball is completely like football. It's completely different. It's a whole new thing. So anyway,
Yeah, Cubs are about 3 games out.
Cubbies are 3 out of it. Red Sox right now are either 3.5 or 3 out. I haven't looked at the score tonight, but they could inch their way in. But they just up and down. They just haven't. They're playing 520, 530 baseball, and that means you're not winning enough in the final stretch. I mean, you got to be like winning. Like you got to go on a streak. You got to win like 6, 7, 7, 8, 9 games straight to make any move, because these other teams are doing the same thing and they got better averages than you have. So that's it. But we'll see. It is 1 month left, and I'll just go back and figure out football. College football will be next. So Miami Canes all the way.
Yeah, I never had a college football team, and when I moved here, I became a Canes fan because I'd go to the tailgates. I'm like, I don't really have a choice, but this was awesome. And I remember the first game I saw, they played like Ball State, right? And it's like, the game 1, game 2, where it's just gonna be a
It's
total
just a
Madden
tune-up. It's a
beatdown.
tune-up game, right?
And I remember that game, the first college game I've ever seen live, and it was like 1,000+ yards, man. And I'm like, this is why you watch college football. It's a different game and it's awesome. And when your team is winning, it's even more awesome. But man, those Canes have sucked for every year since. And I'm like, man, they got to get this thing together.
Well, you
I mean,
never
you're
had.
talking about something where everybody in Miami is like, they used to be like the team. And I'm like,
Well,
I know because I'd watch it on TV.
they were the team, and you never had an opportunity, I guess, to go to the original stadium,
Right. Yeah. The
which
original.
was, I mean, I'm telling you, I pissed me off when they left that, and so it pissed off all the students, the players, because that was a loud. I mean, that was all metal stands, and we would stamp on it. That place would get super loud, and it was a great place to watch a college football game. And then they move it into the freaking professional football. And I'll give them credit. You go into the Dolphin Stadium, and they literally transform that on a Saturday. They change all the insignias, right? You go in there, you've been there. It's all Miami Canes, Miami Canes. And then on Sunday, they play the Dolphins play, and it's all changed back to Dolphins. And you just like, can you imagine a grounds crew having to deal with this stuff?
Every time, man. Every time. It's like when I go to New Orleans, one Sunday it's a Bears bar. The next weekend it's a Bengals bar. I'm like, whatever team is in town, that's the bar. That's the bar.
That's right.
Same business, man.
Well, whatever you can capitalize on, that's what this country's good at, is capitalizing. So.
No joke.
Well, Alan, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time to take out. I know you've got things you want to do too. I'll catch up with you again. Definitely see you at PCA and possibly on the road. I'm not going to be at at Florida this year. I have commitments.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, I have commitments down in Miami because I made a commitment 2 years ago to the BCA that I would, if they came to my if they came in my area, if they came to Florida, I would cover the BCA. And they are in Florida, and they're at the same weekend as Florida Barn Smoker. So I was like, I have to keep my word to do that. I've covered the
Hey, but
Florida
if you're
one
in
plenty.
town, before we leave, hit us up because we'll meet up and have a great time.
Yeah, I got to remember the exact dates of it. I don't know if I think it's on the same Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 1 day event. Unfortunately, it clashes the same exact day. And then 2 weeks before that, 2 weeks before that, I'll be down at the Luzona Palooza with
Oh,
Espinosa.
sweet.
So that's
Yep.
always a fun event to go to. So 2 back-to-back Miami trips, and it's gonna wear me out. That's old guy. But so
Tough life, man. Somebody's got to do it.
I juggle that for next year and a half while I'm working, and then when I retire, I can just blow this up a little more, right? Just I'll be
Yeah,
everywhere
no
then. So
doubt, man.
I'll give you the last word.
The last word. I don't know, man. I think, with me, like I said, I've been in premium cigars now for 7 years, and it's been the greatest run of my life career wise. And guess what? Everybody should be able to achieve their dream, be able to work in what you want to work in what you're passionate about. And if you're able to do that, you'll find success. And I've been very lucky to be able to work for a great company and really try to deliver those world-class cigar experience for our consumers and our retailers every single day. So, thank you for letting me be here and tell about us and what we do and try to do every single day because it's always been my favorite cigar company, even before I joined the company, and it still is my favorite cigar company. And I hope that, the work that we do lets us be everybody's favorite cigar company. That's what we try to do every day. It would be creating excitement and loving what we do and sharing our passion with everybody that wants to listen to us. Because man, we just love what we do every single day.
Well, that's good, and it shows. Everybody I talk to, everybody I know in Drew Estate will say the same thing, and it's just your culture. So applause to you and to Jonathan for leading a team that is passionate about what they do every day. So that's it, folks. That's our show tonight. I appreciate everybody that tuned in and are tuning in later and watching this. Don't forget, this will be up on the Stogie Press YouTube channel next Saturday.